I want to get Shabnam Nasimi is with me. She's a political activist and government advisor who also worked with the Minister of Afghan Resettlement. And you've been tweeting about this, putting a lot of information into the public domain, Shabnam. And actually, it was a listener who sent this to me and said we should be covering this. Just tell us what on earth is going on and why.
Thank you, Peter. Well, while the world's eyes are on Gaza, Pakistan has quietly decided to deport almost 2 million people back to Afghanistan, a country which I must add is suffering from one of the world's worst humanitarian crises, where the Taliban have banned women and girls from going to university or school and systematically deprived them of every one of their most basic of human rights. So what the Pakistan government has done is that it has abruptly declared that refugees from Afghanistan, who they claim are living in the country without documents, must leave by November 1st, which we are now a few days past, and deportations continue. I have personally seen and heard that in recent weeks, Afghan refugees living illegally in Afghanistan have come under mounting pressure to leave the country. And that includes landlords suddenly evicting tenants, employers firing workers, the police raiding neighborhoods, arresting those without paperwork.
Why is Pakistan doing this? What's their logic? What's their sort of excuse for this?
Well, look, the Pakistan government has claimed that last month's bombing in southwestern Baluchistan province of the country, which resulted in killing of more than 50 people, is linked to Afghans living in Pakistan. And I think it's triggered their latest decision. But this sentiment has been going on for months and years, that terrorism has an Afghan link. Let's consider this. The Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, which are called TTP, is an Islamist, nationalist and pro-Pakistani Pashtun movement that is not from Afghanistan. Both Afghanistan and Pakistan have a Pashtun population. But why is Afghanistan being blamed for it when Pakistan has historically hosted and allowed extremism to develop and grow in their own country for decades? What the interim prime minister has just said is that regardless of whether Afghans are playing a good or bad role in our society, our system has no way of identifying these individuals. So what they're saying is that the 1.4 million Afghans who are registered as refugees will not be affected. But the word here that's very important to consider is the term illegal. To put that into context, since NATO's colossal error of judgment, handing the country back to the Taliban on August 2021, which for millions of Afghans, it was a personal catastrophe as they fled war, violence, tyranny, and genocide. Afghanistan's neighbors are not issuing visas to Afghans that easily, unless you can prove that you will not settle in the country and will be moving on. And that includes Pakistan. It is not easy to secure a safe and legal route to leave Afghanistan, even to neighboring countries. So I guess when we say they are illegal migrants, well, there's no legal routes to flee Afghanistan. Many of these people have lost their land, have sold their land and property after August 2021, when NATO withdrew, to leave in search of safety, work, education for their children. And I think that's a basic human right.
And there's evidence as well, Shabnam, there are people who are legal, who have Afghan citizen cards, who have been affected by this as well. And I think it's a really interesting point about the 2021 withdrawal. I mean, I think Biden massively screwed up there. I think the UK massively screwed up. I think NATO massively screwed up. And this chaos that is ensuing is what is left. And we forget that, don't we? We just say, oh, we're out, so we don't care anymore.
Absolutely. What's really heartbreaking is that 2 million number that we're seeing in the headlines, in the news, seems like it's just figures, but these are devastating stories. One of the women that I'm actually in touch with and supporting in Pakistan fled Afghanistan 10 years ago. She's been living in Pakistan legally, by the way. She's married, has children who go to school and work. All the while, she's made to feel that she's living in someone else's land and treated harshly. Unfortunately, that time has run out for her this month, and she has actually been, the police have raided her property in Peshawar. She fears arrest in prison, as she was one of the part of the former Afghan government. She was a very vocal activist against the Taliban and is staunch women's rights activist. It is very, very heartbreaking to see, actually, as a former government advisor myself, who's worked with UK ministers on Afghan resettlement, that schemes that were promised to evacuate Afghans who stood side by side with the British in their fight for democracy and freedom have been abandoned for more than 2 years in Pakistan. These are men
and that is absolutely disgusting that that has happened, because there are, as you say, there are so many people who were translators, who were helpers, who did all sorts of jobs, some of which we'll never know about because we can't for intelligence and security reasons, who we should be giving shelter to. And we are a very accommodating country. I mean, people often say that we don't like migrants. Well, actually, there are loads of people from Ukraine who people have taken into their homes. There are lots of Afghan refugees, but there should be a lot more. We should, those schemes should have continued. Is there any sense that those people will be helped in any way, or have they just been abandoned by the UK government?
Look, you're absolutely right. We are a generous country, and we have hosted a number of different groups over the last 5 to 6 years, from Hong Kong, Syrians, Ukrainians, and Afghans. But not enough is being done for Afghanistan. As you've said, many of these men and women fought with the army, with the British Army, worked for Her Majesty's governments in Afghanistan since 2001. They worked and supported UK international efforts through civil society activism, and particularly those who are vulnerable are women and girls. And we haven't done enough. Unfortunately, actually, in addition, the numbers that we're seeing around of those being deported from Pakistan are those who have been waiting for months in Pakistan to be resettled in the UK. And their visas are now being run out. So it's not that they were undocumented from the beginning. They were, but their visas are not being renewed. What I'm actually hearing now is that the UK government are telling those in Pakistani hotels, Afghans who are waiting to be relocated to the UK, to hide indoors as authorities begin crackdown. So to not go outside.
Goodness me.
Of arrest and deportation. I don't think it should have reached this point. We must have acted much, much faster. And just quickly, more broadly speaking, I think we do ask the UK government, together with the international community, condemns Pakistan inhumane and cruel actions. I'm disheartened also to see Muslim majority nations sit silently on this issue when it comes to oppression that is faced by Islamist groups in the region. We don't see a lot of many countries that are in its core Muslim countries speak up, but we're very quickly able to jump on and talk about the West and how others
they certainly have a role and a responsibility as well. Shabnam Nasimi, you're a great campaigner. Keep doing what you're doing. She's a political activist and government advisor who also worked with the Minister of Afghan Resettlement. I mean, we just abandoned that place. We just abandoned it, and there are so many problems that we have created, I'm afraid, and are being perpetuated by the Taliban. It's horrendous.